George Kilpatrick Inspiration for the Nation, celebrating people we feel good about. Well, we got a guy we feel good about. It's the story of Tex Simone, the man who saved baseball in Syracuse. And if you've ever been to a Syracuse Chiefs, Sky Chiefs, Mets game, you know what I'm talking about. Wait, no, let me do it. Syracuse Chiefs, Sky Chiefs, Chiefs, Mets game, then you know what I'm talking about. It's a book told by William Humbler, Wendy Simone Schoen, and John Simone. Wendy and John are brother and sister, obviously, and it's such a delight to hear about the man who saved Syracuse. John, so good to see you. And John is a good guy. Many times I've been to whatever the ballpark is called now. I forgot the name.
NBT Bank
I was
Stadium.
going to say it's still NBT Bank.
Yeah.
I have so many names that popped into my head, but NBT Bank. I was going to say MacArthur Park,
Yeah.
which was the old ballpark,
Old stadium. Yeah.
the old ballpark. So, John, congratulations on the book. And for those who may not know, Tex Simone was your dad, and you tell the story of, obviously it's a love story in some ways, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it was, I think when people read it, they thought it was just going to be about this baseball guy, but it was the story of how, my grandfather came here and how my dad grew up on the north side of Syracuse in an Italian neighborhood, and how he played sports and went to the service, served in the Korean War, and how just fate just kind of intervened from the time he went into the service until his baseball career really took off.
And I didn't know this, that the Syracuse franchise came from Montreal. Tell me about that.
Yeah, back in 1956, the team lost baseball, and for a 5-year period, they couldn't get it back. And fortunately, the Dodgers had moved out west to Los Angeles from Brooklyn, and their AAA team was in Montreal, and it was getting to be, as you could imagine, sending players from Montreal to Los Angeles was kind of difficult. So they moved to Spokane, Washington, and they sold the Montreal franchise to the Syracuse group that put together that community-owned ownership group. And we bought the Montreal franchise for, we were supposed to give them $50,000, but I think we only gave them 35. And Buzzy Bavasi and Walter O'Malley said, "Okay, that's fine. We'll just take it, and we don't want anything to do with this franchise anymore." So that's how it happened.
And you think about, look, Walter O'Malley and Buzzy Bavasi, they had quite a gold mine in Chavez Ravine, Los Angeles, when they finally built that stadium. So I guess they could afford it then. Although they probably weren't there yet, right?
No, I think they were still playing in the Coliseum, right? Didn't they
Right.
play there?
They played the
Uh,
Coliseum.
but a short story on that, Walter O'Malley's grandson built a stadium, a minor league stadium in California years later, and came to Syracuse after we built our stadium, our new stadium, the NBT Bank Stadium. And my dad told him that story, and he said, "So technically, I still own about a third of this franchise." And because his grandfather had passed away, and my dad says, "Well, I don't know about that. He gave us a letter to forgive all that, so you don't own anything." But he jokingly said that.
So I grew up in the Bronx. I mean, grew up in New York City, born and raised in the Bronx, and I was a Yankee fan at the time. And I used to go to Yankee Stadium with my grandfather and all of that, sit in the bleachers as one of the Con Edison kids. All right, so trivia question for you. How much did it cost to go to Yankee Stadium when I was a kid?
Probably the
So
bleacher seats were probably 50 cents, right?
$1 for bleacher seats
Okay.
and general admission. How much for a box seat?
350.
$4.
Okay, I was close.
Yeah, and $3 for reserved, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And so that was the old Yankee Stadium before they
yeah.
remodeled it. Then and so I'm saying all that to say I used to get the yearbook, and they would always talk about the players who were sent to Syracuse to get their start. And so for
Yeah.
many years, the Syracuse Chiefs at the time was the affiliate of the New York Yankees. But then what happened?
Well, in 1977, our working agreement was up, and Mr. Steinbrenner had made overtures that he would like to move his team to Columbus, Ohio, where he was from and his wife was from, and his shipbuilding business, which a lot of people don't know. George was built a lot of ships back in the day. That's how he got his start.
Shipping magnate.
And
Yeah.
yes, and George Sisler Jr., the son of the great baseball player George Sisler, was now the Columbus general manager. They had just refurbished their brand new stadium in Columbus, and he was a good friend of my dad and said, Tex, he's coming here, so you might want to go somewhere for a year before he dumps you. So it just so happened the Toronto Blue Jays were ready to field a AAA team. Pat Gillick had just left the Yankees to go to Toronto to run them, and my dad had a relationship with him, and he was the guy that told George Steinbrenner hit the road. Not many people told him that.
No, not many people did. And you didn't look back. And of course, the Yankees did eventually move their franchise to Columbus and then to Scranton, where it is now.
Yep.
And so you titled the book "The Man Who Saved Baseball in Syracuse." That's a bold claim. Did Tex Simone save the game here?
Well, when he took over in 1970, the team was $300,000 in debt, and that was a lot of money back in 1970, as you can imagine. And he wiped that debt out in the first year he was the general manager. So in 1970, that debt was down to zero. And then from there on, the team was extremely profitable and did very well. And then in 1990s, when franchises were building beautiful stadiums like in Buffalo and Indianapolis and Louisville and some of the bigger cities, and we were a little Syracuse, my dad knew that we had to do something and pushed to build the stadium that's there now. And if we didn't do that, we would have probably not had a new stadium.
Now you argue, well, your dad argued he liked things just the way they were, right, on the north side. And during that time, many of us, and I was in City Hall at the time,
Yeah.
were really pushing. Was I in City Hall? Wherever I was, I
Yeah.
wanted it downtown, and half the people did. But you, where did you sit in there? What was your vote? Because I know your dad wanted it to be on the north side, and this is what the rumor was. The rumor was that Mike Bragman, who had an interest in that remaining on the north side and was the assembly person for that area, was insistent that it remain there as well to get any of the state funding. Now, is that far from the truth, or how close am I?
Well, I mean, my dad was pushing for a stadium well before the 1990s,
Right.
before Mike Bragman got involved. And every year, everyone from Nick Pirro to Roy Bernardi, who was a good friend of my dad's, everybody from both sides, county and city, said, "Nah, nah, nah, we're not going to spend any money. MacArthur Stadium's a good stadium." Well, we would have played, as my dad, I think, once said in the newspaper, we would have played on the top of Money Tower in downtown if somebody would have built us a stadium there.
Okay.
And at the time that the city, and Tom Young was a very good friend of my dad's, he told him, I have no money to give, Tex. I have nothing. And as you can imagine, the 90s, the city wasn't doing very well.
Right.
So they had no money. And the only person that came to the bat of in the defense of my dad and to build a stadium was Mike Bragman, who just happened to be the Democratic Assembly leader. And we had a Democratic governor at the time, and he had the ability to generate the funding for the stadium, and and he had the support of Steve Rogers Sr., who was very instrumental in making that happen. And
That was a new the newspaper, right?
yes, the newspaper, Syracuse newspapers,
Yeah.
and Mike Bragman was doing a lot of redevelopment down in that area. The regional market got a big boost. Destiny had just been built, so there's a lot going on in that area, and quite frankly, the land that we played on was for free. No, we didn't have to purchase any land. One of the sites that the city was pushing at the time was over by the rescue mission. And old
Mhm.
Clarence Jordan, I remember, came to one of our meetings and said, "Hey, I don't want it here. I don't want a stadium with a big Budweiser sign in left field when I'm trying to take care of get people off drinking alcohol.
That's it.
I don't want you promoting it." So
That's an
Clarence Jordan
interesting
didn't want it.
sidebar there. I didn't
Yeah,
realize that
yeah,
because what they wanted to put it like on the other side of those tracks in that big lot, right?
Yeah, over by Tallman and Fayette in that area,
Oh,
which would
really?
have
Oh, Tallman and Fayette.
which
Yes.
yeah,
Okay.
which would have it would have cleaned up the area, would have been nice for the area, but there was over 55 sites that would have had to be purchased at the time. And like I said, Clarence was in opposition of it, and it would have probably added 3 or 4 more years
Hmm.
on to the building, which would have uh, uh, made building the stadium in peril, quite frankly.
Are you? I mean, do you regret it now? And not, you don't have any regrets, but I'm saying now downtown is happening. We still got some of the issues um, on that side of town, but still, now you got a lot of people living downtown, and it's happening. Would have been nice to have a ballpark down there, don't you think?
Well, yeah, I think it would have been nice to have a facility downtown, but you got to remember that was what, almost 35 years ago.
Yeah.
We were talking about it, and yeah, downtown is a lot better than it was 35 years ago. Right now, there's a lot happening, but
Right.
at the time we couldn't wait. I mean, we wouldn't have had baseball in Syracuse if we waited at any point. So you know, and it's done well where it is, um, and downtown has done well since then. So I think both people won, both downtown and the baseball fans.
I think the baseball fans won. I think that what we would, what there's still hope for is that there will be more development around the stadium. Because I got to tell you something, and this is my opinion, the most difficult street to cross in Syracuse is from the train station to the mall, and the stadium is over there. You cannot cross that street. But anyway, that's a whole other. They
No,
need to
I
figure.
agree with you.
Yeah,
And you gotta look at the mall now. I mean, with regard to the mall, malls are kind of obsolete.
right.
So really, the development there uh, was great, and it was a great synergy between the mall, the regional market, the train station, the regional market, and the stadium. But things change over the years, and now everyone gets their packages on Amazon.
Couple of things that I found ironic, right? So you write in the book about, you tell the story about uh, the Toronto Blue Jays and the direction that they were going, especially around the supply of players, particularly from the Dominican Republic, and how they didn't really want that. Talk to me about that.
Well, that was later when Pat Gillick and a lot of the scouts that signed the Tony Fernandez's and Carlos Delgados.
Right.
There was a new regime that came in, a guy named JP Ricciardi, who was the general manager, and he was a guy that liked to draft college players. He came from the Moneyball era. He worked for Billy Beane in Oakland, and he just thought that college players were more developed, more polished, and why would you want to invest in a 16-year-old Tony Fernandez when you could just get a college player that played 4 years at Texas and you knew what he could do? But unfortunately, that didn't work. And Mr. Ricciardi was out of a job after 5 or 6 years, and Toronto went in another direction. So it was just a philosophy of the time, and Moneyball then and still today is has kind of taken over professional baseball.
And then couple that with the Montreal when they came and Jackie Robinson came to Syracuse, and one of the worst treatments he ever got was here. And how did you guys handle? How did your family think about that, or what's the memory of that, and how do you overcome that? You since done many things since then.
Yeah, fortunately, my dad was still in high school when Jackie played for the Montreal Royals. So, but I'm sure he went and saw him play. But my dad was in the book. He talks about when he was the trainer. Um, Taking care of black athletes back then, believe it or not, when they traveled, he had to bring them to the black hotels, and it really bothered my dad for years. And there's some great stories that came out of it, but and they're in the book of Joe Christopher, who was from the Dominican Republic but was black, had to be told that it doesn't matter. Luke Easter, who was a great Negro League player and then played for the Indians, helped my dad one day and saying, "Hey, Joe, it doesn't matter. Your color, your skin is the same as mine. You got to stay where Tex put you." But later on, I met Lou Johnson, who played in the 60s with the Chiefs and went on to play for the Tigers and the Dodgers. And I saw him at an All-Star game, and um, he was sitting right behind me, and I heard him talking, and I knew it was Lou Johnson because he had his Dodger logo on. And he said, he was talking to a guy and he got up and go to the bathroom. And the guy he was talking to, I said, "Is that Lou Johnson?" He goes, "Yeah." And I go, "Well, could you tell him that Tex Simone's son is sitting in front of him and I'd like to say hello?" I didn't want to bother him. And so he came back and the guy said, "Hey, some guy in front of you says he's the son of Tex Simone." And Lou Johnson's eyes lit up. He goes, "Where? Where is he?" And he told the guy, "Get up, let John sit next to me." And he told me how my dad took care of him back when he played for the Chiefs, and never let him go into hotels that were bad. My father, if it was a bad hotel, he would find another one for the players until he was satisfied. And later on, another player you probably heard of, Hank Aaron,
Heard of him.
ran into my dad in a winter meetings when Hank was the farm director for the Atlanta Braves after he retired. And my dad was nervous about meeting him, and the Richmond general manager introduced him to him, and he said, "I know who you are." And my dad said, "You do?" He goes, "Yeah, I played with Mac Jones, who was a great Syracuse player in the 60s and went on to play for the Atlanta Braves with Henry Aaron." And he said, "Mac says you took care of him back in the 60s when you had to take care of the black players. And any friend of Mac Jones is a friend of mine." And he made my dad sit next to him at every meeting after that. So there were some good stories that came out of it, but it was a terrible time, and my dad had to make the best of it. And the players, the few black players that played for the Chiefs, really appreciate what my dad did.
The Man Who Saved Baseball is the name of the book, story of Tex Simone. And John, I mean, it's almost as if I mean, I'm glad you wrote the book, but I'd love to hear your take as a son and as a colleague. When did you realize that your father was doing something extraordinary for this community and in this community?
Well, in the 70s, like I said, I was probably only 10 or 11 years old, and the team was really doing well, and people were excited about the Syracuse Chiefs back in the 70s when they affiliated the New York Yankees, and then later on when he got the stadium built. I mean, that was
That was
a
a big deal.
tribute. Yeah, you're talking a $32 million building that rivaled the construction of the Carrier Dome. I mean, the Carrier Dome only cost 25 million to build. So we spent over $32 million on that thing, and there was a lot of back and forth whether it was going to happen or not, and it was something my dad was very proud of doing because it's a testament to what he did and a lot of other people that helped him along the way, and it's there forever.
He was known not only for what you describe as saving the franchise and bringing it back, but also for community engagement and the fact that the Chiefs at the time were a community owned ball club, and of course since purchased by the Mets and then sold again. But how did he bring people together and keep that sort of model working?
Well, he had a lot of help. I mean, back in the 60s when that franchise was formed, Tony Henniger, who was one of the mayors of Syracuse back in the day,
And
Frank
is that why we have the
Swanson.
high school named after him?
That's right.
There
Yeah,
we
Henniger
go.
High School. And Frank Swanson, Dick Ryan, Clayton Andrews, a lot of movers and shakers in the community. Not like it has today. I mean, you don't have the people like that running your community anymore. Maybe that's for the better. I don't know, but it just seems like there was more people that wanted to make Syracuse better back when I was growing up, and
Mhm.
those people helped my dad both financially and moving him up the ladder and giving him the support that he needed to be successful.
You talk about the support to remain successful. Obviously, it's had its ups and downs with the minor league baseball. What were some of the biggest challenges that he faced keeping the Chiefs alive and well?
Well, I think during the Yankee era when George Steinbrenner took over, there was a lot of movement within the organization as far as sending guys up, trading guys. It was a struggle to operate the franchise the way Steinbrenner was running the team, and my father knew that. And then when we went with the Blue Jays, they were an expansion team, and they suffered early on, and we suffered with them. But then in 1983, the Blue Jays got Bobby Cox to manage, and then they took off, and there was probably nobody more proud of the Blue Jays winning back-to-back World Series than my dad, and the Toronto people really appreciate what he went through. And for a good 10, 15 years, the Blue Jays were better than the New York Yankees, and they were winning World Series at a pretty good clip. So. I think those were the ups and downs. And then at the end, his in the book we detail he had Alzheimer's and his struggle to remain relevant. But we kept him around, and he still had
He
a
couldn't speak
voice.
as well, right? He couldn't.
Yeah, he had cancer of the throat. So my dad stopped smoking, and then everything went after that. He had a heart attack. He had lost 16 inches of his colon because he had colon cancer. He had throat cancer, and then in the end, he had Alzheimer's. So he struggled at the end, but he battled right to the end till he was 86 years old. And as he said, "Hey, I lived a full life, and I did a lot of things. I can't be here." He actually told me, he says, "I can't be here forever. I got to go at some point." So we were glad we had him for, I think I had him for 56 years of those 86. And was a great father and a great role model and a great person to be around.
How hard was it for you to to tell this story? It must have been emotional and at some points. And did you have to stop and gather yourself during particular moments?
Well, I wrote the epilogue, and after I wrote that, I kind of got emotional, and but I wanted people to know, um, this tough. It seemed like a tough guy who, was a baseball guy, was a loving person. He was a very loving person to both my sister and I, and everybody he met, and would give you the shirt off his back. He was that type of a person. Never a guy that would want to. Take credit for donating his time to the Juvenile Diabetes Association, the Cancer Society, the Heart Association. He did all those things because he thought he should have, and never wanted to promote himself. And in the end, we got the last laugh. We got to promote him and his book.
The community model ended up making it. There was a divorce, right,
Yeah.
between the baseball franchise and your family.
Yeah.
How hard was that for Tex and for you?
Well, I think it helped that my dad was losing, as an Alzheimer's patient. He was kind of not remembering what was going on, and thank God because it probably would have hurt him even more. But
Mm.
it was time. It was time for someone else to do it. My dad had done it for over 50 years. I did it for over 35 years, and while I didn't want it to happen, it was inevitable. People, as I detailed in the book, wanted to sell the franchise. They wanted to profit off of basically what my dad and others created, and they didn't. The theme of community-owned baseball was to keep baseball in Syracuse forever, and by selling a team, you weren't going to keep the baseball here forever. And now that the Mets bought it, and then this new company bought it, DBH, there's no guarantee that it'll be here forever. And when you're owned by the community, shareholders in the community, there's a pretty good chance it's going to stay. But times change, and but you got to move on and do something else.
Did you own? Did your father? Did you own part of the team at all?
No, we did not own. It was my dad was the broker dealer. He handled all the stock transfers. It would have been inappropriate for my dad to own shares of stock. Would have been against the SEC and all the stock because he was buying and selling.
Ah, yeah.
It would have been not right. While other people may have thought that it was okay to do that, my dad was an honest guy and didn't think that was a good idea.
You look at the Syracuse where it is now. Again, the Mets bought it. They made some significant investments in the ballpark, and then they sold it. Uh, did you worry about that happening? I thought the Mets were in it for the long run.
Well, my dad, the Mets had approached us years earlier and
Right.
wanted to buy it, but they didn't. In order to sell the team, we had to get together all the shareholders in the community, and it was going to be an undertaking that was going to cost a lot of money and take a lot of time. And the Mets and the Wilpon family didn't want to wait, and that's when they went to
They
Buffalo.
went to
But
Buffalo. Yeah.
but my dad always said, "How do you know working for the Mets isn't a bad idea?" Because the board at the time was changing, and the people that were getting on the board were people who wanted to see profits from their shares of stock. So there was a group of 4 or 5 people that owned a lot of shares that wanted to profit. I mean, when you have 1,000 shares of a team and those shares are worth $2,000 a share, you can imagine they really didn't care if baseball was in Syracuse or not.
Are you proud of? Do you think your father would be proud of where the game stands today in the city?
I think he's glad that baseball is in Syracuse. I think minor league and major league baseball has changed, George, and I don't think my dad and a lot of the old timers that he came up with in baseball would be able to work today because it's a different game. Major League Baseball controls everything you do, and those are the things that my dad and a lot of the old time general managers fought Major League Baseball, and the COVID, no one thinks about COVID and what it did to sports, but that period when the world was worrying about a disease and Major League Baseball picked a perfect time to make all the changes they did because Congress was fighting them all those years and they didn't have time to fight them on that. And that's when Major League Baseball eliminated 40 minor league teams and changed the landscape of minor league baseball to where, they control everything you do.
And so it wouldn't even be. It might not be as much fun as what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah, there's no, and I'm kind of glad I'm not in it because I wouldn't have had fun doing it in today's game.
What do you? Is there one moment or story you think in the book that best defines Tex Simone's character and legacy?
Uh, That's tough because there's so many. Um,
Well, I
but
got.
there,
Go ahead.
no, but I think, the letters that he wrote to his brother
Mm,
from Germany. Um, and I think you could see in a 21-year-old Tex Simone the love he had for his community. You could see that. I think he said to my uncle, I'm all the way here in Germany, Arch, but I miss Syracuse more than ever. I can't wait to get back. And, he had an opportunity to go to work for the Tigers, the Yankees, the Blue Jays, and he turned them all down. And if you read the letters 50 years earlier, Tex Simone never wanted to leave Syracuse, and he never did.
never. I, one thing that I think the family was troubled by is the fact that the new ownership, as far as I know, except aside from naming Tex Simone Drive as
Yeah.
you drive to the ballpark, they never did anything in the ballpark. And you write that it was Howard Dogan, which some people saw as one of the main competitors of the fan base for sports in the community. It was at the Crunch game that Tex Simone was able to get some flowers. Uh, does that still sting a little bit?
Yeah, because they should have done something for my dad. They kind of pushed him out, which, they didn't have to push him out. He would have left. I would have left. It could have been on different terms, but it took Howard when he called me up and said, "Hey, it's been a year. They haven't done anything for your dad. I want to honor your father. You want to come down to the War Memorial?" And I said, "Sure." My dad spent number of years watching the Nats in the War Memorial and the Blazers back in the day, and all the boxing matches that we used to have in at the War Memorial back in his day. What better place to honor my father than the place he grew up in? So it was very nice that Howard and Jim Sorosi and Vance Lederman and the guys who we had a great relationship with throughout our tenure there did that, and they're still friends with myself and my sister today.
One of the moments of the many moments in the new ballpark, the MBT Bank Stadium now, was Steven Strasburg, right?
Yeah.
And obviously, it's a blessing and a tragedy, right? Because he was firing. He was a rookie coming up for the Washington Nationals. when you were affiliated with them for a
Yep.
couple of years before the Mets, and you had 14,000 people there for him. I think he had a rehab start. Wasn't it a rehab start?
Well, he was there for 4 games. He was actually a chief. He wasn't rehab. He was on his way up,
He was on
and
his
he
way up.
yeah,
Okay.
and he pitched 4 times in Syracuse and averaged about 14,000 people a game. So yeah, it was something.
He was a chief at the time.
Yeah.
And so is that one of the standout moments for you?
Well, I think it's back in for myself personally, there was nothing that compared to that other than opening of the stadium the first year in
Mm-hmm.
1997. That opening day was historic. But yeah, those 4 games. I mean, I write in the book Jim Boeheim and Julie brought the kids there. They were all little at the time. Buddy and Jimmy and the daughter. Um, everybody in the community, every politician called me for tickets. The only thing that was probably close to that was when we had Dave Matthews Band perform at the stadium. We had 18,000 people. Back then, I had the governor's office called me. Everybody wanted to come and see Dave Matthews, and so those 2 events were probably the 2 biggest events at NBT Bank Stadium while I was there.
John, how can the community honor Tex Simone's legacy going forward?
I think just continue going to the baseball park. I mean,
Mm.
that's something he created. He wants the Chiefs to survive and be here forever and support minor league baseball.
Is there a misconception about your dad that you want to clear up right now as we as we begin to wrap?
Well, I mean, as well as I do, when the newspapers want to do a hit job on you, they can do it. And back in the day, when young Steve Rogers took over, he they thought that to get rid of Tex Simone, then you could get rid of the community-owned baseball, and that's what they tried to do for a number of years before they gave up and then did it another way. But they always said my dad was cheap, and that really stings because he was a good businessman. He learned his business smarts in the service. He was an accountant before baseball, and he always made do with what he had. And he was, maybe you could call him frugal, but that's what allowed us to hit budget every year and make a profit. And in the end, when we kind of lost control of how the team was operating and other people were managing our business, they were spending money quicker than we could make it. And my dad was a very, very smart businessman who knew how to make a dollar.
Tex Simone, the man who saved baseball in Syracuse. I should have asked you what motivated you to write this book.
My dad actually, we talked about it for years, and then after he got Alzheimer's and we couldn't ask him questions anymore, and then he passed away, a good friend of mine, Bill Humber, who was the author, wrote a very, very nice letter about his relationship with my dad uh, after his passing, and I said, Bill, you shouldn't have wrote that letter because now I'm going to ask you to write the book. So he wrote the book for us, and then we added to it. And then we got Wildebeest Publishing to do it, but it was just something we always wanted to do, and I know my dad would be proud that he's still being talked about 10 years later.
Where can people find the book, John?
Amazon.com on their book section, and at Barnes and Noble here in Syracuse and DeWitt.
Are you planning to do any more projects with Bill to share more of the story, or even your own story?
Well, actually, George, I grew up and, my dad started in 1961. I was born in 60. And for a good number of years, I hung around the clubhouse. I was a bat boy at 5 years old, worked in the front office, worked for the Toronto Blue Jays for a couple of years. So I have so many stories. Now, my dad's book was a tribute. This is the Ball 4 edition.
Okay,
And so I've been working on it with Wildebeest. I'm up over 100,000 words already and hope to have something ready before Christmas.
great. Can't wait for it. In the meantime, oh, last thing, for people for this generation who never had the opportunity to meet Tex, for young kids who are now starting on their baseball journey, becoming fans of the Syracuse Mets, what would you want them to know about Tex Simone?
That he cared about the community. He cared about the Syracuse Chiefs, now Syracuse Mets, and so much so that he gave up a lot to stay here and make it successful.
And thank you for that. And we should say, Syracuse Chiefs, then Sky Chiefs, and then you actually went to the nation and got them to approve you returning to the Chiefs. Did I get that right?
Yeah, my dad was good friends with everybody, and Chief Shenandoah never wanted us to change it. That was political pressure back in the day, and I remember Chief Shenandoah telling my dad, I was actually there, saying, "Tex, I got more issues than the name of your team on the reservation. So you've never done anything derogatory towards the Native American. We didn't have an Indian running around the field. It was just a logo that they approved." And then, unfortunately, back in the 90s, there was pressure to do something, and the board felt that we should change the name. But the Syracuse Chiefs was always a great name, and today people still call it Team the Chiefs.
And it does have the approval of the nation. Now it's the Mets,
Yep,
obviously,
yep, yep,
but I thought that was a real interesting piece that I wanted to
yep.
tie back into it. All right, John Simone. The name of the book is Tex Simone, the man who saved baseball. Get it on Amazon and everywhere books are sold. John, you're just an easy guy to have a conversation with. And I think that's the beauty of baseball. It is about the storytelling. It's the pastime, easygoing, and as a Yankee fan, um, I lost the World Series to you as a Dodger fan, but we'll
There's always
see.
next year. There's always this year. Who knows?
We'll see. We're always look. It's win or bust for us. So
Thank you,
I,
George. I appreciate this. You've always been a good friend of my dad's and the team and myself, and have enjoyed all the different platforms you've been on. And I've been on all of them, I
yes,
think.
you have.
And thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Inspiration for the nation, celebrating people we feel good about. John Simone, thank you.